Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points. The big talking point tonight is coming from a big decision taken by the Narendra Modi cabinet. One nation, one poll cleared by the cabinet. Is it a realistic idea or a fanciful one? Also, is there a real threat to Rahul Gandhi's life? We'll be raising that question also. Also, world's top security expert on the Lebanon pager blasts. All that and much more coming up on the primetime destination, the news today. The big story breaking this Wednesday night, there's been a record voter turnout in the first phase of the Jammu and Kashmir elections, the first for the State Assembly in 10 years. There's been a nearly 60% voter turnout in the provisional figures in phase 1 polls. The highest voter turnout is in Kishtwar at 78.51%. Many of these areas would register very low voter turnouts in the past amidst poll boycott calls. Doda, Ramban have witnessed over 60% voter turnout. So very positive news coming in there in terms of voter turnout from Jammu and Kashmir. That's the good news that's coming in. Remember, South Kashmir has gone into vote in this 3-phase poll. There you can see Iltija Mufti, the daughter of Mehbooba Mufti, who contested from Bijbehara. And we'll, of course, have more on that on Elections Unlocked at 10:30 p.m. tonight. So that's the latest that we are getting you, the voter turnout in the first phase of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, talking of elections, the Union Cabinet today threw up a trial balloon, cleared the Ramnath Kovind report that recommends simultaneous elections for state and the country in 2029. One nation, one poll. Now, sources tell India Today the amendments needed to implement these polls could be moved in the winter session of Parliament later this year. But the opposition has rejected the government's move as impractical, described it as an assault on federalism. Does the Modi government have the numbers to pass this proposal? Or is this, as some are suggesting, simply a trial balloon? Take a look at our top story.
बार बार चुनाव इस देश की प्रगति में रुकावट बन रहे हैं और इसलिए देश में व्यापक चर्चा हुई है। सभी राजनीतिक दलों ने अपने विचार रखे हैं। एक कमेटी ने बहुत बढ़िया अपना रिपोर्ट तैयार किया है। वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन के लिए देश को आगे आना होगा।
One nation, one election. The NDA government is pushing ahead with PM Narendra Modi's pet mission. In a major development, the Modi cabinet has approved President Ramnath Kovind-led panel's recommendations for simultaneous elections across the country.
There is a widespread support for simultaneous elections in the country. इसका implementation 2 phases में होगा, जैसा कि कमेटी के recommendations में है। फर्स्ट फेज में लोकसभा और असेंबलीज के इलेक्शंस को साइमल्टेनियस कराने का प्रयास होगा और उसके सेकंड फेज में लोकल बॉडी इलेक्शन से जो है ग्राम पंचायत, जिला पंचायत, ब्लॉक में पंचायत समिति और जितने भी अर्बन लोकल बॉडीज हैं उन सब के लोकल बॉडी इलेक्शंस को विद इन 100 डेज ऑफ जनरल इलेक्शंस में करवाना, जिससे कि एक बार में सारे इलेक्शन का प्रोसेस कंप्लीट हो।
Sources tell India Today that the government is likely to bring one nation, one poll bill in the upcoming winter session of the parliament. The Kovind committee had submitted its report to the government in March, shortly before the announcement of Lok Sabha elections 2024. The panel had recommended that the government take a one-time transitory measure which would require the union government to identify an appointed date immediately after a Lok Sabha election. All state assemblies that go to polls after the said date would have their terms expire with the parliament. The centre's move has already triggered a war of words.
ये प्रैक्टिकल नहीं है और ये चलने वाला नहीं है। ये सिर्फ चुनाव जब बात है, कोई ना कोई कुछ मुद्दा नहीं मिल रहा उनको, ऐसी चीजें बात करने के लिए, इश्यू को डाइवर्ट करने के लिए वो बात करते हैं और इसीलिए और पूरे देश के लोग कोई मानने वाले भी नहीं है।
बहुत जल्दी विपक्ष में भी उनके अंदर से आंतरिक दबाव बनने न लग जाए कहीं, क्योंकि देश में करीब 80% of the respondents who responded during the consultation process, 80% से ज़्यादा लोगों ने इसको बहुत पॉजिटिव सपोर्ट दिया है, खासकर यूथ ने. यूथ इज वेरी मच इन फेवर ऑफ इट.
For now, Modi 3.0 Sarkar seems to be going full steam ahead with its plan for simultaneous elections. With Himanshu Mishra and Piyush Mishra in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
So the big question, one nation, one poll, is this realistic or a fanciful idea? Does the Modi government have the numbers to push one nation, one poll? Is simultaneous polls going to affect the federal spirit as opposition claims? Or is Modi 3.0 signaling it's business as usual? They are fully in control. Some of the questions we'll raise. O.P. Rawat, former Chief Election Commissioner, is with us. Syed Zafar Islam, BJP's national spokesperson and former MP, with us. Supriya Srinath, Congress's spokesperson and its head of social media, is with us. And A. Sarvanan, the DMK spokesperson, is also with us. Appreciate all of you joining us. Very quickly, first, O.P. Rawat, to you, sir. Do you believe this is an idea whose time has come, or do you believe that this needs a lot of work before it can actually be realized, given that we are a country with so many political parties, 29 states, several union territories, having one nation, one poll, impractical? Is it impractical or feasible?
Rajdeep, it is practical, and we had 4 simultaneous elections in starting 51 to 67. But the approval of this committee recommendation creates doubts, because when you talk of local bodies, municipalities and panchayats, these elections are held under state legislations, and every state has different legislation. Second thing, they have state election commissions under the Constitution, Article 243. If you are finishing them, then it attacks the federal structure. And by approving the committee recommendation, we have given this argument to the opposition. If it was only legislative assemblies and parliament, then there would have been no issue, because all that is within the ambit of parliament and central government.
Yes.
And election commission had been reiterating time and again that it is feasible, just give some time and some money for arranging the logistics, means procuring additional EVMs and VVPATs, ensuring additional paramilitary forces.
If I may just, with due regard, the Election Commission cannot even hold Maharashtra elections with Haryana and J&K. They postponed the Maharashtra election, saying we want to hold only 2 states at a time. Now suddenly 29 states, and in the 1950s and 60s there were very few regional parties. Now in every state there are 1 or 2 strong regional parties. They may not agree to this.
Election Commission is bound by the existing law and the Constitution, and within that framework, whatever maneuvering space is there to ensure a comfortable and convenient conduct of elections, they decide. So I cannot question their wisdom in separating Maharashtra and Haryana.
Now my point is, if you separate Maharashtra and Haryana, then how are you going to hold 29 national and state elections together? They will require a huge amount of resources.
The Election Commission is confident, and they have reiterated time and again that there is absolutely no problem, because when Constitution and laws dictate so, Election Commission will have no alternative. In fact, they will be going full steam to conduct and deliver elections.
Okay, so you're saying Election Commission is on board on this. Supriya Srinath, then what is the problem? Here we've got a former election commissioner. There are divided views on this, of course, among some of the election commissioners I've spoken to. But O.P. Rawat seems to suggest that it is possible. So is it about feasibility, or is it the principle that it attacks the federal spirit of the Constitution, that states must be allowed to decide their own election cycle, not the center?
So thank you for having me on the show, and it's a good evening to your viewers and to my fellow panelists. The report, which runs into 18,626 pages, that has got the nod of the Union Cabinet, is perhaps against every grain of the Constitution the basic structure of our constitution and against the federal structure of this country.
How?
There are multiple things that are wrong with this report. To begin with, the composition of the committee itself. To have an ex-president headed, to have not the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, but instead an ex-leader of opposition like Mr. Azad to be there. I'm not going there. I am going to talk about the findings of this committee. One of the grounds that this committee says this should be espoused is lower expenses. Well, to do elections, the kind that they are referring to, firstly, this is not simultaneous election, Rajdeep, and that has to be pointed out very, very clearly. They are talking about elections together for 5,000 people, which is about 4,000 MLAs and about 543 MPs. But for the 30 lakh elected representatives in the Panchayati Raj, elections will be held 100 days later. It will require polling booths, polling stations, polling parties, security staff, about 1.5 crore people who are involved with this exercise. So this is not simultaneous to begin with. That's a flawed argument. The second point that I want to make, and that's an important point, this voodoo economic argument that is being given, that this is going to, rein in expenses. Actually not, because you are going to need 3 times the number of VVPATs, you will need twice the number of EVMs, all of this will have to be manufactured. There's a lot of cost that you will incur in trying to achieve simultaneous elections. That's point number 2. Point number 3, and I think this is an important point that I want to raise here. There are flawed arguments. It goes against basic common sense. Suppose a state government falls. Elections will be held there, so they won't be simultaneous, but they will only, the duration of that assembly will only be till the period till general elections are there. I mean, what sort of voodoo economics is this? And let me ask you one more question. Suppose the central government, suppose Mr. Modi's government very likely falls in 2025. What will happen then? You will dissolve all these state assemblies, you will suspend all the state assemblies and have elections.
No,
Is that what this
they've given 2029.
This is not just impractical.
They've suggested 2029 as the starting point. You're saying what happens if the government falls in 2025?
I am asking you.
Okay, you're saying what happens if the government falls in 2025?
I am saying absolutely.
Okay.
I am saying, suppose this is 2029 and the central government falls in the midterm. What happens to state assemblies then? And one more question, Rajdeep, which should be raised is, this whole argument, and I want to spend 10 seconds with your kind permission, this whole argument of one nation, one election, one nation this, one nation that, this is a flawed argument. It is against the very grain of being an Indian. We are not one nation, one language. We are not one nation, one color. We are not one nation, one religion. We are not one nation, one culture. What is this attempt to
Supriya Shinde, I've given you time. I've heard your arguments. You made some strong... Ma'am, just a minute.
Diversity.
Ma'am, okay, you're saying this goes against diversity and the federal spirit. Just a minute. Okay, Syed Zafar Islam has patiently listened. Syed Zafar Islam, there are one serious point is that this is against diversity and the federal spirit of this country. Every state, every party wants to have its own regional cycle. Delhi cannot impose or dictate what cycle should be there. And if this goes through, 17 states will have only 2 to 3 year terms because they go to election between now and 2029. Is this feasible, or is this simply a weapon of mass distraction and diversion?
Well, Rajdeep, you have heard the former Chief Election Commissioner. He has very clearly stated that it is possible, it is practical. And this has been proposed because the Election Commission, if it is passed by the Parliament, Election Commission will be bound to deliver it. Whatever resources they need to mobilize, they will have to mobilize. So, in terms of for the people who have concern about whether it's practical or is impractical, is something which has been clarified by none other than the former Election Commissioner. Having said that, we have always observed, and finally they will comply. We have no doubt about it, that whenever we have proposed something very positive for the country, not for our party, not for our government, not for any particular person or a community or society, but society as a whole, then they have a problem. They will start crying. They will start criticizing. And that is what Supriya is doing. My sister Supriya is doing that. But let me tell you very clearly that we have, the Honorable Prime Minister has stated, not once but many times, that this is something which needs to be delivered for the sake of this nation. Because when you have election every month, every year, every quarter, then everyone struggle. When
So
the
it keeps
students
you on
have
your
exams,
toes.
the parents
There will be
struggle
some
because they have
saying,
election
sir,
duty. students
Zafar
have-
Islam, there are
No.
those who say that having frequent elections keeps you politicians on your toes.
Let me see.
Can I make a small
No, 1 minute, ma'am.
Whatever people say is not relevant. Whatever people say is relevant from their perspective. But what is the common man's perspective? That one election should be held every 5 years. Whether it's assembly election, whether it's a general election.
No,
they
why not hold
all
one?
should
I'll
happen
give you a better.
simultaneously
Can I
it
throw a
reduces
suggestion?
cost.
Just a minute. Can I throw a suggestion?
Let me just
Islam.
come.
How about
Just
one
a second.
nation, just a minute. One nation, two elections. You have state assembly elections together and general elections. Now what will happen? One nation, one election means you are confusing a general election, which is fought on very different issues, to a state election. India is not a presidential system, sir.
Rajdeep,
Yes, sir.
I heard Congress spokesperson saying that it is unconstitutional. I mean, the election, one nation, one election which was followed since 1951 till 1967 was unconstitutional. When the committee headed by a Congress minister in 1983 suggested, Mr. Reddy suggested that there should be one nation, one election. What was it suggested by the Mr. Reddy, the then minister, was unconstitutional? This kind of
Okay, good point. You're saying if election, you make a good point, sir. If elections were held in the 50s and 60s on the principle of one nation, one election, and it was not unconstitutional, then why is it now? Mr. Sarvanan, you're a lawyer as well as a DMK representative. Why is it unconstitutional? Why is it unconstitutional? That specific limited point.
See, it is unconstitutional.
Why?
So 1950s and I'll tell you why. Because 1950s, it happened naturally. You don't have to dissolve any existing state assembly. And there were no embargo. That if the state government's assembly is dissolved, it has to wait for the union assembly, union parliament or something. But now, there is no provision which says all the elections have to be done in one go. So when you do that, there is no provision in the constitution. When you are suggesting something that there is no place for to be followed in the constitution, then we call it as unconstitutional.
No, they are bringing a constitutional amendment, Mr. Sarvanan. They are bringing a constitutional amendment that would assure it. So I come back to it, where is the specific unconstitutionality?
Let me answer that. Before that, this one nation, one election is a fantasy of the BJP. They are not even able to pass the Waqf Act. They don't even able to pass the lateral entry. They went back on indexation. You think the BJP has the wherewithal, the political capital to pass something like this? One word from Mr. Chandrababu Naidu and one wink from Mr. Nitish Kumar will send all these BJP leaders who are talking about one nation, one election packing. They are just doing this. This is yet another jumla of the BJP.
No, you're saying they don't have the numbers. Sir, just a minute.
Can I just come in, please?
Yeah, sir, I'm getting you, Zafar Bhai, because I want to put the numbers on screen and then I want you to respond, Zafar Islam. Lok Sabha numbers. MPs who pledged support to the Kovind panel are 271. Remember, you need 2/3. Total NDA strength is 293. MPs who expressed opposition to the Kovind panel, 205. The government, as of now, does not have a 2/3 majority in the Lok Sabha to pass this. Remember, India plus MPs who didn't express opinion is 234. 2/3 majority needed to clear the bill is 362. So the government needs 362, which they don't have at the moment in the Lok Sabha. Given these numbers, and Rajya Sabha is equally clear, NDA 121 in the Rajya Sabha at the moment, India Alliance has 85. To get a 2/3, you need 164. So actually, Zafar Islam, the fact is you don't have the numbers. Where are you going to get the numbers to get a 2/3 majority? Is this simply, therefore, as is being alleged by the DMK, a jumla to divert attention to create a new narrative?
Let me respond to this, Rajdeep. You hear me carefully. Did we had enough number of seats when we proposed abrogation of Article 370, but still we are able to build consensus and we passed it, isn't it? Likewise, we will have to build consensus here. We are not saying that we are going to impose it. We will talk to every single political party because it is for the good for the country, it is good for everyone, it is good for the people of this country. It is not good for any particular party. Everyone will have to sacrifice, including Bharatiya Janata Party. We all will have to sacrifice to make it happen. Unless we are able to build consensus, we will not be able to deliver it.
Okay,
but
we
will put in effort.
You're making an important admission, sir. You're saying
all the political parties
you want to do it through consensus.
Responsibilities that what towards the people of this country.
Okay, you made an important point which Supriya Srinath, you should respond.
Government
is saying we don't want to impose it. We want to build a consensus. We will invite parties, we will get people on board because we need more numbers. Now that's not a bad idea. What is wrong in at least discussing it with the government? Have a dialogue with Prime Minister Modi and Rahul Gandhi.
Consensus is not BJP's calling card. They believe in coercion. That's the politics they have been used to. If they had been believing in consensus, they would have tried to build consensus in the first 3-4 months of their existence in the third term as government.
No, but he's saying on the program, Zafar Islam on the program is saying, I will not impose one nation, one election until I build a consensus.
I will tell you why. I will tell you why is he saying this. I will tell you why is he saying this. Because Zafar Islam is a very clever man. He knows the BJP doesn't have the numbers. He knows this is a hot air balloon. He knows there will be a U-turn on this. And then they will say that because there was no consensus, we did not put it through. We did not go through. The reality that from 2019 to now, they had to send one bill to JPC because the opposition stood up and opposed this, which is the Waqf bill. They said there was no consensus. No, you tried to coerce, we will stall you. And that's what we will do with this also, because this undermines the federal structure of our country. This is undemocratic. This is against the states of the union. It cannot go through.
No, but was it undemocratic, ma'am, with due regard? Was it undemocratic in the 1950s and 60s? Was it undemocratic in the 1950s or 60s, or is it undemocratic because Mr. Modi is doing it?
Exactly. No, exactly the point that I'm coming to. I don't make silly arguments, and you know me better than that. In the 1950s, when simultaneous elections were happening, because we had become independent, we had an election calendar where states and the center were going to elections simultaneously. Then politics happened. State governments fell. There were states that fell short of majority marks. They had to go for elections again. The central government once in a while did fall during the 80s and the 90s, during the 70s, and which is why the calendar got disrupted. Natural politics disrupted India's electoral calendar. The rise of regional parties, all across India took shape. Okay. This cannot be dominated by the Congress or the BJP alone. There is a regional aspiration that one has to take care of as well. And one last thing I want to say, Rajdeep, this flawed argument, just 10 seconds, this flawed argument that is being made, that, it stalls policy making. 4 साल 11 महीने आपको पॉलिसी मेकिंग नहीं करनी है, 1 महीने में पॉलिसी मेकिंग करनी है. No existing policy gets stalled, no decision making gets stalled. You can get the election commission to give you approvals for any emergency policy making. The reality is that 4 years, 11 months is what you have to make policy. Okay. You want to make all policies in the last 11 months. That's
you made your point.
Silly and
you
a very
made your point.
Argument,
in fact, my worry, of course, is that fuel price cuts will only take place now once in every 5 years, since they usually take place before election. But Zafar Islam, you want to respond?
Rajdeep, there is an old proverb, a very famous proverb. I think it really applies on Congress party. Old habit die hard and bad habit never goes. This is a very famous saying. And this is what Supriya Srinath is doing right now here. Because they had made similar kind of statement when GST was introduced. Similar kind of statement. Gabbar Singh tax, finally they complied, they accepted. But this is the structural reform which country needs. And finally it has become a reality. Likewise, many other structural reforms which was proposed by our government, they made similar kind of statement. They criticized us, and finally they have complied with it. Even this will happen. It will become a reality. I'm not saying that we will impose it. It is their approach. They want confrontation. We want them to be responsible. We just want them to be responsible, not confrontational approach. What she's trying to.
I've listened to everyone.
And we will build consensus. Congress may or may not be there.
Okay.
But we will build consensus, and of course, we will be able to pass it.
In fact, it will be more difficult, sir, for you to bring the regional parties on board on something like this. That's the sense. But O.P. Rawat, can I throw something at you? What if it was one nation, two elections? Like in the United States. You have state elections at one time and general elections. Is that a more workable idea? I'm throwing a more feasible idea.
For parliament and assembly elections together, whether one nation, one election or one nation, two elections, both are feasible. There won't be any issue.
Which is the better one? Which according to you is the better idea?
Together.
One which will be more acceptable since consensus has to be built.
That I cannot comment because that political parties have to comment. They are the stakeholders there. As election management body, I think both are acceptable and both are feasible.
Okay. Mr. Sarvanan, your final word on this? I mean, what if I threw at you one nation, two elections? You have state elections across the country at one period in the middle of an election or general election calendar and general election like the United States. Isn't that one way forward?
No, Rajdeep, the American analogy will not work here in our country, simply because they have a governance system and presidential. Whoever gets 51 votes becomes the governor or the president. That is not here. We have a multi-party democracy where what if there is no question of a government falling midway in the US, but that is not the situation here. Here the governments fall. If the coalition is not working or if they don't have the majority, then new elections are called for.
Okay, so you make a good point. You make a good point. We cannot take a presidential system into a multi-party democracy.
I have one more point. I have one more thing to say.
Yes.
The election commission or the BJP government, you are talking about conducting elections in 2 states. They are not even able to conduct elections in one state in single phase. That is why, how can we expect that they will have simultaneous polls across the country? And
okay, you made the point, Supriya Srine. I will give you exactly 30 seconds to conclude. Are you ready for one nation, two elections?
I am not ready for any hot air balloons that are against the basic structure of our constitution and affect the federal structure of this country. This is a lot like demonetization, shifting goalposts. You know, terror funding will stop, never stopped. Cashless economy never became cashless. Black money is going to go away. It is very much there. The reality, Zafar Islam, is that GST, we are the original architects, and you have made such a flawed GST that you had to humiliate and coax a sorry and an apology out of a man who was only giving his concerns regarding GST in Coimbatore. That's the reality of the economy that you're building upon.
Okay.
This is a hot air balloon.
I've heard
it's a distraction tool because you know that you're going to lose.
Hot air balloon, says the opposition. Government says it's an idea whose time has come. At least let the debate take place. We need these kind of healthy debates and hopefully consensus building before these ideas are brought into reality in any form. But I appreciate my guests joining us. Supriya Srine and Zafar Islam will stay with us because I have another question to raise today. Remember, Narendra Modi's Union Minister Ravneet Bittu's comment saying Rahul Gandhi's terrorist #1 has now triggered a big storm. The Congress is saying that there are violent threats against Rahul Gandhi, and this is a BJP conspiracy when several of their leaders attack and call for physical harm to the Congress leader of the opposition. Today, a complaint was filed in a police station calling for action against the union minister. The BJP's top leadership has been mum on the matter so far. Take a look.
The Congress hit the streets protesting against threats of violence made to Rahul Gandhi. The angry demonstrations on Wednesday followed a series of remarks made by NDA leaders against the leader of opposition over his comments on issues ranging from Sikh struggles to reservation while he was on a tour to the US.
राहुल गांधी खुद देश के नंबर 1 टेररिस्ट अगर किसी को मेरे ख्याल से किस पे इनाम होना चाहिए पकड़ने के लिए या देश का सबसे बड़ा दुश्मन जो जिसको लाना चाहिए एजेंसीज को वो आज राहुल गांधी है।
राहुल गांधी इस देश का नंबर 1 आतंकवादी है। राहुल गांधी ने जो रिजर्वेशन खत्म करने की बात की है, हमारे मागास वर्गीय की, हमारे ओबीसी की, हमारे पिछड़े जाति की, ऐसे राहुल गांधी की जो जवान काट के लाएगा, मैं उसको 11 लाख का इनाम दूंगा।
राहुल गांधी के भी समझ में आना चाहिए, इसके लिए ये समाज ही उसके जीभ को चटके देके उसको बार बार याद दिलाएगा।
While Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge wrote to Prime Minister Narendra Modi urging him to rein in his party leaders, the party on Wednesday filed a police complaint.
We think that this is a clear conspiracy under the knowledge of Prime Minister and Home Minister. But we would like to know from the government, what is your game plan on Rahul Gandhi?
From the DMK to Shiv Sena UBT, many Congress allies have come out in support of Rahul.
ये एक षड्यंत्र है, एक साजिश की रचना है। इस देश के लोकतंत्र में ये समस्या हल करने का ये मार्ग नहीं कि विपक्ष को जान से मारने की धमकी दी जाए। ये रशिया में होता है।
As Congress turned up the heat, Union Minister Ravneet Bittu sought to defend his remark.
टेररिस्ट किसको कहा जाता है? जो टेररिस्ट की बात एंडोर्स करे, जो टेररिज्म को प्रमोट करे। जब पन्नू और राहुल गांधी एक दूसरे की बात, एक दूसरे को एंडोर्स कर रहे हैं, एक दूसरे की वाह कर रहे हैं, खड़गे साहब ये बात पे आप अपनी स्थिति और कांग्रेस पार्टी स्पष्ट करे।
ये सब लोग जेल में रहते थे और रहने के काबिल है।
Language of violence is not new in Indian politics. Congress members have been accused of issuing threats to Prime Minister Modi in the past.
नहीं हो रहा है।
The Congress is planning to hold nationwide protests in support of Rahul Gandhi. So far, the top guns of the BJP have maintained silence on the issue. With Mausami Singh and Rahul Gautam in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
So is there a real threat to Rahul Gandhi's life as the Congress claims? Should the BJP top brass rein in leaders from making provocative comments, or is the Congress overreacting? Who will end the hate and violent speech in Indian public life? Zafar Islam and Supriya Srinath are still with us. Supriya Srinath, you were with us last night when you raised this issue, claiming that you wanted the BJP to distance itself. Ravneet Bittu has made it very clear. He was referring to Rahul Gandhi's comments on Sikhism, which he says is encouraging a form of separatism. The Congress must clarify their comments on that first. Your response? He says he's not endorsing violence. He's questioning Rahul Gandhi's comments.
In the last 48 to 72 hours, from Tavinder Marwa, a leader of the BJP, saying that Rahul Gandhi will meet the same fate as Indira Ji, who was brutally assassinated, or Bittu calling Rahul Gandhi a terrorist, or one UP minister echoing the same thing, or an MLA saying Rahul Gandhi's tongue should be burnt, or another one, an ally of the BJP, saying it should be cut, and he will reward the person who cuts Rahul Gandhi's tongue with 11 lakh rupees. I have one simple question to ask of you. This isn't just about Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi is the leader of India's opposition. He takes on the BJP, he puts the BJP in the dock, he shows the BJP a mirror like nobody else does. How can anyone accept this language in a democracy like ours? And is this a hidden fact that Rahul Gandhi's grandmother and his father were martyred for this country? Is it a hidden fact that the kind of polarized politics that the BJP does pose a threat to Rahul Gandhi's life and liberty? And now when you have multiple people, openly calling for Rahul Gandhi's, issuing a threat against his life, how can we keep quiet?
Ma'am, 1 minute. Now, I've heard you will recall Congress workers saying, Modi teri kabar khudegi. 1 minute. Modi has been called a terrorist.
Rajdeep, this is very wrong.
No. No. You must give me an answer to that. You can take the moral high ground today. You can question Bittu. But what about the times when Congress workers have said, Modi teri kabar khudegi?
The problem with you is The problem with you, Rajdeep, is that you're trying to balance it out. There is no balancing act
I'm asking
that's
a question
here, and I'm being very assertive on this. And I will say it to your face. Please listen to me now. Don't interrupt me. I'm asking you to listen to me because this is not a political issue for me. It's an emotive issue for me. It's about my leader. It's about a man who this country believes in. It's about the man who's walking the length and breadth of this country to keep the country united. So this is a very, very emotional issue for me. I deeply love and respect my leader, and I do believe that the kind of statements being said about Rahul Gandhi, there is a real threat to his life. And I don't think I can take it lying down or look the other way. You asked me two things. I don't support any statement like that against Mr. Modi. I don't support it at all. Okay. But who in broad daylight in the Congress has said that Mr. Modi will be meeting this fate? Look at the statement that has been made. And what did Indira Gandhi die for? She refused to bow before terrorism. She wanted to keep the country united. That's exactly the fate that Rajiv Gandhi met. And are you telling me that somebody like Rahul Gandhi can be called a terrorist? Death threats can be issued by
you made a strong point and you have every right to be emotional. Ma'am, just a minute. Ma'am, I've heard you patiently now. Ma'am, I've heard you patiently. I appreciate your... No, ma'am. No. Zafar Islam is also on the show. He must respond. Just a minute. Ma'am, you have raised an important point. Zafar Islam, since these comments... No, 1 minute, ma'am. I have to lower your voice. Since these comments have been made by Rajdeep Bittu, I haven't heard any of your top leadership distancing themselves, condemning it. Is this the language that any union minister should be using? Someone who's sworn in on the constitution? It is unacceptable. It's dangerous. How long is this going to continue? Someone says, I'm putting a bounty, I'll give 11 lakhs if you cut Rahul Gandhi's tongue. He's a Shiv Sena MLA. Now you've got Rajdeep Bittu saying terrorist number one. I mean, what is going on? And why is the government silent? Mr. Rajdeep Bittu should at least, at the very least, apologize for what he has said and say, I didn't mean it. I mean, what is... Mr. Zafar Islam.
Hear me because my line has dropped. If you can hear me, just confirm that
I can hear you. I can hear you. I want to know why is the government silent when Rahul Gandhi's these personal attacks, threatening physical threat are being made?
I think...
I can hear you. I want to know why. Mr. Islam.
First of all, you must understand what has triggered for Mr. Bittu to make this kind of a statement. Mr. Bittu has made this statement primarily because Mr. Rahul Gandhi once again chose a foreign soil to make a statement in favor of Khalistani forces, which is anti-national forces who wants to break from the Union of India and make a separate country. And supporting that initiative is something which has gone very wrong with
leader Mr. Marwa says Rahul Gandhi will meet the same fate as his grandmother.
That's why he is a representative of Sikh community.
Mr. Marwa goes a step further and says Rahul Gandhi will meet the same fate as his grandmother.
Of course, one should restrain. No. Rajdeep, see, I must tell you that one should restrain while making a statement against any political leader. Not only against Rahul Gandhi or for that matter anybody. But let me ask Supriya Srinath why they have not made such a statement against when people have from their party made a statement against the Honorable Prime Minister. You raised one, but there are many such instances where they have actually called him Maut ka Saudagar, and many other things, terrorists, many other things I said. We didn't hit the street because you made a statement, people will judge you. In this case, Mr. Bittu has clarified what exactly he meant. He was upset because Rahul Gandhi was supporting a Khalistani forces which is anti-national and that he shouldn't have done it.
Sir, either
all
way,
other statements might be other leaders, perhaps.
Sir, you are a sensible politician. We all need greater restraint. Supriya Srinath, all of this can be sorted out. No, 1 minute. Ma'am, you said I am being balanced, but I believe Tali do haath se bachti hai. Ma'am, no, 1 minute. You must listen to me. Tali do haath se bachti hai. The fact is that there is a hyperpolarization where the quality of public discourse has fallen. Both of you need to sit together, Congress and BJP, and say enough is enough and distance yourself and get the police to prosecute those who make these comments.
Can I please come in?
Yes, final.
Rajdeep.
Will you allow me to come in now?
Yeah, please come in.
Rajdeep,
Put Zafar's voice down.
No, it is my turn to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
Rajdeep Sardesai, you raise a point about law taking its course. We had to do a dharna in Maharashtra to lodge an FIR. We have lodged a complaint with the Tughlaq station police here in Delhi. We want to see the FIR being fructified. Let us see how law takes its course. This is Amit Shah's Delhi police. Let it act. That's the first thing I want to say. Don't sermonize me on how we should distance. Mr. Modi and Amit Shah and JP Nadda need to rein in these voices because these are not fringe elements of the BJP. These are not lumpen voices. They are MLAs, MPs and ministers. And are you really justifying what Ravneet Bittu said, Zafar Islam? Because you are lying through your teeth. Rahul Gandhi's grandmother, India's Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, lost her life to terrorism because she refused to bow before those Khalistanis. How dare you say Rahul Gandhi will ever support them? I take offense. I seek an apology. You are the people who stand with secessionist forces. How dare you say Rahul Gandhi supports Khalistanis? Absolutely never. Okay. He has lost his grandmother to the terror. He has lost his grandmother because she refused to bow before those Khalistanis.
Okay,
how dare you?
Let me take a break.
Absolute nonsense.
I've heard both sides. I've heard both sides. You know, this will go. This is why I was a little. I only plead for restraint.
Bullshit.
10 seconds.
Yeah, okay, 10 seconds.
You don't deserve 10 seconds.
No, put his voice. Yeah, 10 seconds. Rajdeep. He deserves the equal time. Go ahead.
Rajdeep, I think who is she to decide who deserves 10 seconds or not 10 seconds? My line was dropped. I was not able to listen to what you are saying, what I am telling you.
Tell me.
So perhaps I do deserve it 10, not 10 seconds, but half a minute. Let me tell you, one has to really, in politics, make a statement which should be acceptable to the society. But when you are making this kind of an allegation against Bittu or for that matter any political representative of our party, you should also introspect about yourself. Why you have made this kind of a statement against the Honorable Prime Minister? And when you made this statement against the Honorable Prime Minister, what action you had taken against those colleagues of yours? Did you take any action? You never took any action. You supported them. You supported them. And that is why today you have absolutely no leg to stand to make this kind of claim that we should take action.
I really hope that the police of this country is watching. They are the ones who have to take action. If we have a police force of any substance, they should be acting against anyone who incites violence of this kind through their speech or threatens physical harm to anyone. Unacceptable, dangerous, and India deserves much better than this kind of political language. I appreciate, though, both Supriya Shrinet, Zafar Islam for joining me. Let's turn to that big story that's blowing up globally. A day after the pager attacks, now a series of walkie-talkie blasts reported in Lebanon today. At least 9 people killed in this second wave of blasts. Hundreds have been injured. The death toll in the pager attacks has risen to 12. The number who've been injured has touched the 3,000 mark. Soon after this, Hezbollah issuing an official statement blaming Israel for the incident, vowing that they will make them pay a price for their aggression. Okay, let's join someone to understand this who is a global anti-terror expert. Rohan Gunaratne joins me now from Singapore. He's someone who's tracked terrorism for decades now. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Gunaratne. How do you interpret what we've seen in Lebanon? Is this Israel against Hezbollah hiding explosive material within pagers? Are we seeing a new form of counter-terrorism?
The Israeli security and intelligence community is the most innovative and creative service in the world. In the mid-1990s, the Israelis used a very similar technique to assassinate a terrorist bomb maker by planting explosives on his phone when he had sent his phone for repair. But in this case, we have seen that several thousand pagers at the stage of factory manufacture, that explosives were embedded near the battery and the pages, the explosives laden pages reached the hands of the Hezbollah rank and file. So you can see that how a security and intelligence service can operate very effectively to target the enemies using the supply chain.
But what do you believe is the objective behind such attacks? Is it to spread panic in the ranks of the Hezbollah? Could it be a prelude to a potential all-out Israeli offensive against Hezbollah?
It is very likely that the Lebanese Hezbollah communications network was disabled and dismantled. So even it is very likely that the Israelis may strike. But if they are not going to attack, certainly it has sent a very clear message to the Lebanese Hezbollah not to play with Israel. Because in 1996, Yahya Ayash, the famous Hamas bomb maker, when he answered his phone that had just come from a repair, it exploded, killing him instantly. So you can see that Israel always believes in preemption, in conducting operations to weaken its enemy before it strikes. So at this instance, the Israelis have been very successful to send a lethal message to the Lebanese Hezbollah.
But yesterday it was pagers, today it's walkie-talkies. Are we entering an age where virtually any mobile, any tech equipment, mobiles to any appliances can be weaponized? Are we entering this new form of tech warfare, Dr. Gunaratne?
Absolutely. And what we are seeing is that even it will apply to the cyber domain. That is, it will be possible for security and intelligence services as well as terrorist organizations, because terrorist groups always learn from government capabilities. They may also do that. For instance, they could plant various capabilities within computer and other systems that would later be activated. So we can see that a new red line has been crossed, and it is very likely that we will see this kind of activity in the coming months and coming years, both by state actors and by non-state actors.
You know, you mentioned Israel and how it's always a step ahead of its adversaries. Do you therefore see Iran, which is a patron of Hezbollah, now struggling to strike back, or the Hezbollah itself? Do you think Israel now has sent a message which will push all these forces on the defensive?
As the United States is a key ally of Israel, the US has given a very clear warning to Iran not to attack Israel after the Hamas leader was killed in Tehran. So what we are seeing is that because of the US cover, the Western cover, Israel has been able to maintain its military and its intelligence dominance, both in its operations and in other activities, in other domains of activity. So with that Western cover, Israel will be able to effectively fight Ansarullah, which is the Yemeni Houthi terrorist group, Lebanese Hezbollah, as well as the groups in Iraq, and of course in the occupied territories, both Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So Israel has the support of the West, and as long as that support remains, Israel will dominate the battlefield.
Dr. Gunaratne, for joining me there from Singapore to give us your perspective on what is a major global story. Appreciate your joining us. Those images coming in from Lebanon. That's it on the news today. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubh Ratri. Jai Hind, Namaskar.